Hey everyone, ever picked up a contract or a stock certificate, looked at all the legal jargon, and just hoped for the best? Well, today we're diving into a Supreme Court case that shows exactly why the fine print matters. This is the story of Republic Planters Bank versus Robes Francisco Realty, a fascinating tale about a loan, a nearly 2-decade-long wait, and a legal battle that all came down to a few critical words. So let me ask you this. When is a deal not really your deal? It sounds like a riddle, right? But it's the central question here. We're about to find out how outside forces, things like banking laws and even the government's power to protect the public, can step in and completely change what you thought was a simple agreement. Okay, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with the facts, what actually happened. Then we'll get into the core legal questions at the heart of the dispute. After that, the Supreme Court's verdict, and, most importantly, the reasoning behind it. We'll wrap up with the key corporate law doctrines this case teaches us, and finally, the judgment. All right, first things first, let's set the stage. To understand the legal fight, we need to know the players and the deal that kicked this whole thing off. So, picture this. The year is 1961. Robes Francisco Realty needs a loan, and they get one for 120,000 pesos. But here's the twist. A small chunk of that loan, 8,000 pesos, isn't given in cash. Instead, the bank gives them 800 shares of its own preferred stock. Now, fast forward almost 18 years to 1979, the realty company suddenly pops up and says, hey, we want our dividends and we want you to buy back these shares. That massive time gap? Oh yeah, that's going to be a huge deal later on. So, with the facts laid out, what exactly was the fight about when they finally went to court? Let's break down the legal conflict. This whole case really boils down to 4 key questions. 1. Was the bank legally required to pay dividends? 2. Could the realty company force the bank to buy back its own stock? 3. Did the realty company just wait too long? I mean, 18 years is a long time. And finally, did the lower court get it wrong when it initially sided with the realty company? So the case made its way all the way up to the highest court in the land. After all that, what was the final word from the Supreme Court? And the answer was a big win for the bank. The Supreme Court said the bank's petition had merit, and they completely set aside the lower court's decision. The complaint against the bank was dismissed. Total reversal. Now let's get into the why. This is my favorite part, where we break down the logic. Let's deconstruct the decision and see exactly how the court reached its conclusion, step by step. First, the court tackled the issue of dividends. Now, a lot of people think dividends are like guaranteed interest payments, but they're not. Dividends are a share of the profits, and the law is crystal clear on this. A company can only declare dividends if it has unrestricted retained earnings, basically surplus profits. And that's the absolute bottom line. No profits, no dividends. It doesn't matter if you have preferred shares or common shares. As a shareholder, you're a part owner, an investor. You're taking a risk. You're not a creditor who's guaranteed to be paid back. If the company succeeds, you succeed. If it doesn't, well, you don't. Okay, next up was the issue of redemption. This is simply when the corporation that issued the stock decides to buy it back from the shareholder. And this is the smoking gun. The court looked at the actual text printed on the stock certificates, and it said the shares may be redeemed at the option of the corporation. Those last 5 words, they changed everything. You know, it's wild how an entire legal battle can come down to one tiny word. In law, may implies a choice, discretion, it's optional. Shall, on the other hand, is a command. It's an obligation, it's mandatory. Because the certificate said the bank may redeem the shares, it meant the bank had the option to, but not the obligation. The choice was theirs and theirs alone. And then we come back to that giant elephant in the room, the 18-year delay. The court definitely took notice of how long Robes Francisco Realty sat on its hands before making a claim. This brings us to a legal doctrine called laches. It's basically the law's version of you snooze, you lose. If you have a right but you wait an unreasonably long time to enforce it, the court can say you've effectively abandoned that right. And yeah, waiting nearly 18 years was considered a pretty unreasonable delay. So let's zoom out from the specifics of this one case. What are the broader, lasting lessons that this decision reinforces for all of us? Here are the big takeaways, the core principles. 1. Dividends depend on profits. Period. 2. Words matter. May is a choice, not a command. 3. Unless it says otherwise, the power to redeem stock lies with the company. 4. Private contracts aren't untouchable. The government can step in for the public good. And 5. Don't sleep on your rights, or you might lose them because of latches. And here's the final nail in the coffin. The court pointed out that the bank was actually in financial distress. The central bank had even issued a directive preventing it from redeeming shares to protect the banking system as a whole. The Supreme Court said this was a valid exercise of the state's police power. At the end of the day, protecting public welfare can and does trump private rights in a contract. So let's bring it all together. After weighing all the arguments, what was the final binding order from the Supreme Court? As you can see, it was a complete flip-flop. Robeson Francisco Realty had won their lawsuit in the lower court. But when the Republic Planters Bank appealed, the Supreme Court ruled in their favor, completely dismissing the realty company's complaint. So what's the big lesson here for all of us? It's that the fine print is everything. This case is a powerful reminder that words like may versus shall, or the simple passage of time can have massive, multi-million peso consequences. It teaches us that before you sign anything, you have to understand not just the words on the page, but the rules of the game that govern the entire agreement. Thanks for digging into this with me.